One of the most frequently asked questions to me by people who are just getting into photography is, or they've been doing it for a while, is whether they should be buying camera gear or they should simply be hiring it.
By the way, can I please request you to subscribe to this channel so that you get all the updates that we send. Also, it's a good idea to hit the bell icon so that you get instant notifications when we have new content.
Well, I don't want to answer this question in simply hire or simply buy. I'd like you to do a little bit of a math and figure out the answer yourself. So let's do this exercise. Please list down all the trips you've been to in the last 2 years. It could even be a weekend out, or it could be a day trip birding out in Bangalore or Bombay or wherever. Now, apart from that, I'd like you to make a list of all the camera equipment that you used on all of these trips. And you can go to a website like ours, which is the Toehold Camera Rent, and take prices of these camera equipment and put them in the Excel sheet. In short, I'd like you to calculate the cost of hiring camera equipment in the last 2 years if you had hired them, or if you really actually did hire them. Now, that comes up to a particular number. And now look at the cost of actually procuring this equipment. If this cost of hiring it is not below 15 to 20% of actually obtaining this equipment or buying this equipment, then in my opinion, it doesn't really make business sense or economical smart sense to actually be investing on this camera gear, because it will take you nearly 5 to 6 years to break even this cost. And you know what happens in the world of cameras, right? In 5 years, the camera is obsolete and it's time for you to buy another camera. So you'll actually be as good as just being renting all the time. So in my opinion, if you don't travel 40, 50 to 60 days in a year, which is 1/5 of a year, and you don't use camera equipment for 50, 60 days in a year, you would actually be better off simply hiring equipment from a rental store rather than investing your hard-earned capital on investing on equipment which are not just sitting idle in your house but are also depreciating. The value of a 600mm lens today is not the same 1 year later and 2 years later, so you're actually depreciating the value of this equipment. In this era of all of us using these shared cars and taxis and Olas and Ubers, it really makes no sense to own a car if you really don't use it regularly. Likewise, the same logic with camera equipment as well. If your usage is not really very high, you should not be investing on camera gear and making it sit in your house and not do anything, and also develop fungus, and for which you'll now have to invest on more camera equipment, like buying a dehumidifier to keep your camera equipment safe. So guys, if you're not really using your camera for more than 50 days in a year, let's keep that as a thumb rule, it makes no sense for you to buy equipment. You're actually better off hiring it, paying whatever you want. And the biggest advantage of hiring it is, let's say you're going on a mammal photography trip, like let's say to Ranthambore, you want to photograph tigers, you need a 400mm lens, for example. And next month you're going to, let's say, Corbett or let's say Pungo to make photographs of birds, where 400 is a little short. You can actually be using a 600mm lens. You go to Ladakh to photograph snow leopard, you can be using a 800mm lens. So don't get married to just one lens and hire it or buy it and keep it in your house. It's a great idea to hire what you need for that particular day and that particular trip. So my choice is to be able to hire equipment when you want to, unless you really know you shoot a lot, and buy equipment like, let's say, a 70 to 200mm lens, which you need for every trip in every place, and you shoot more than 50, 60 days a year.